I'm Jason Hartman, and I'd like to invite you to our very first two-day conference in beautiful Hawaii. Many of our attendees are making a vacation out of this event. You will learn the most innovative strategies for real estate investing available today. We have helped thousands of people invest in properties around the U.S., and we can help you do it too. So I hope you'll join us, and happy investing. Bitcoin, blockchain, ICOs, Ethereum, and all the rest. Are cryptocurrencies the 21st century unicorn, a speculative bubble, or the future of money? The CryptoCast will help you understand the rise, the fall of digital currency, the highs, the highlights, the potential, and the lows, the scams, and pitfalls. I'm your host, Jason Hartman, and we'll talk with some of the biggest names in the space. CryptoCast is your resource for all things crypto. Let's go. Welcome to the show. This is Jason Hartman, your host, and every 10th episode, we do something kind of special, kind of different. What we do is we go off topic. So regardless of which show it is on the Hartman Media Network, whether it be one of the financial shows, economics, real estate investing, travel, longevity, all of the other topics that we have, every 10th episode, we go off topic and we explore something of general interest, something of general life success value. And so many of our listeners around the world in 164 countries have absolutely loved our 10th episode shows. So that's what we're going to do today. And let's go ahead and get to our guest with a special 10th episode show. And of course, on the next episode, we'll be back to our regular programming. Here we go. It's my pleasure to welcome Mike Starks to the show. He is the founder of Personal Trainer Food. And I tell you, if one simple thing has impacted my life more than any other, hey, it might be real estate investing, but it might also be this company. I have been a customer for several years now. I found out about this company through a high-end concierge doctor that I had. As most of you know, I'm a bachelor. I don't like to cook, but I do like to eat, and I like to eat healthy. And so we're going to talk about the problem and one of the solutions to it today. Mike, welcome. How are you?
I'm great, Jason. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's good to have you. So I've mentioned your company on my show several times over the years. I called and asked, I said, hey, do you guys do an affiliate program? And you designed one for me. So my listeners can check out your program, and I've become an affiliate. It's like that commercial, which I happen to be thinking more and more about every year, the Hair Club for Men. I always thought it was funny, that old commercial. He says, I like it so much I bought the company.
Right, right, exactly. Yeah, I may be joining that club very soon.
Yeah, we don't have a cure for that today, but we do have a cure for some of the biggest problems. I mean, it is amazing, Mike, how just over the years, over the decades, we have seen America and many parts of the world, but America especially, I think, is probably the worst victim to this. The epidemic of obesity, heart disease, cancer, diabetes. It is unbelievable that here we live in this era of unprecedented technology and prosperity. I always say it's an amazing time to be alive. The human race is just, I have one of my shows is called the Longevity and Biohacking Show. And we recently shared some statistics that for the first time in potentially forever, I don't know, life expectancy is actually declining. And it's simply because of personal choices and the literal poison in our food supply. Speak to that a little bit, if you would.
Jason, what's interesting is years ago I noticed that America, is the most nutritionally educated country and culture ever in the history of the world. We can read a nutrition label. We know what most of the big confusing words mean. We have all of that in our brain and at our fingertips, and yet we're the most obese. So why do you think that is? I'll tell you, what's happened is we got it wrong. 40 years ago, when heart disease was at an all-time high in the United States, doctors were trying to figure out why are people dying. Well, what they did was they ignored smoking. Smoking was at an all-time high in the late 60s and early 70s. Heart disease was at an all-time high. And because the tobacco companies and the government were kind of in bed together, they looked for something else to blame. And so they turned to some guys, some doctors, pretty smart guys, and they started blaming fat. And now we know, we learned through the New England Journal of Medicine last year that it was actually a conspiracy. Instead of them looking at sugar, they decided to blame fat. The Sugar Association actually paid off these doctors. Sad deal.
What happened, it seems, in the history of our poisonous food supply is that they started on this like public campaign against fat. And fat is actually quite good for you. A lot of fats are, right?
Yeah.
And so I remember thinking about how many grams of fat were in anything, years ago. And, my mom used to ask the waitress at the restaurant, how many grams of fat does that have? Stop. It's just a dumb question, right? But they misled the public. And so they took all the fat out, and by taking the fat out of the food tastes like cardboard. So they added sugar and replaced it with sugar. It's an absolute conspiracy.
Yeah.
And if you look at the way the planet was designed by our creator, or whatever you believe, sugar is hard to get in nature, right? It'll take a lot of time to harvest a little bit of sugar, but it's easy to get all these other foods that are good for us and plentiful. Maybe that's by design, right?
Right. That's right. That's right. And I'll tell you what's interesting about sugar is one of the other, I think, culprits here is that up until about 1960 to 1970, like you said, you nailed it, the manufacturing of sugar, it took about 50 tons of water to process 1 pound of white sugar. And when my wife and I were over in Kauai one year, about 20 years ago, we flew over an old sugar refinery, and they were telling us the history of it. And so what I think has happened, Jason, and you're exactly right, when you pull fat out of the food, it affects the texture. So to make up for that, they've got to put in flour or gluten and sugar. And both the manufacturing processes of flour and sugar really improved and increased in the 60s and 70s, and it made it very affordable. But unfortunately, what happened is the health and fitness world, the diet food companies, the medical community all got on board with this whole low-fat idea. And so what happened, and I think we're still seeing the repercussions of this, is that, people my age in their mid-50s have been taught that low-fat is where it's at, and now they're 40, 60, 100 pounds overweight, and they can't lose it. And that brainwashing is very hard to overcome, especially when you get older. And so, that's where we try to be a lot different, is we don't believe in low fat. We actually believe that fat's good for you. Trans fat, of course, is not. But we try to teach people, because they'll say, well, what about grease? And I'll say, look at grease as, grease for your joints. Like grease on a car is good because it helps everything stay loose and somewhat flexible. And the same thing goes for fats, is that it's good for you in a lot of ways. But it's hard for a lot of folks to get over that. 25 years ago, I didn't believe in it, but today I do. And that's where I think a lot of the experts now are starting to sing the praises of the low carb, the paleo, the keto diet, and they see some of the benefits of those diets. But I think the internet is still, low calorie, low fat is still the dominant player in the weight loss world.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so the amazing thing that happened to me, and it wasn't from doing sit-ups, okay?
Right.
Like people tell me all the time how fit I am and how I never gain weight and all this kind of stuff. And, I don't gain weight. Like I weigh the same as I did when I was 18 years old, okay? But I always had kind of a little bit of a spare tire, not much of one, but a little bit. And for the first time ever, after eating your food, I just had a flat stomach. I couldn't believe it. It wasn't from doing sit-ups. It wasn't from exercise, And I don't do any extreme amount of exercise. I just am busy like so many people, I think it probably goes in this order. Sleep is critically important to health. Maybe this is not in order, but sleep is very important. Diet, right up there with sleep, and then exercise after that. But you gotta eat right. And it's so, if you just tackle the diet component mostly, I mean, most of your problems are just solved,
Absolutely. And, and that's what we try to teach people. And you're exactly right. Sleep is by far the most important thing you can do. But if you just sleep and you eat right, you really got about 90% of it figured out. I mean, the other part, a lot of people talk about exercise. And look, I agree. I think there are parts about exercise that make you feel better. But realistically, most of us don't have a lot of time to go to the gym, or we're not that committed. So what we have learned and figured out over the years is that if you just eat right and abstain, and that's the other part of the formula that most people tend to ignore, but if you abstain from the wrong things, eating the wrong things and cigarettes, things of those nature, then it's really not that difficult. But I think what happens with most people, Jason, I used to tell when I speak at different events, I would tell folks the number one cause of obesity in America has been confusion. Everyone's confused. You were telling me before the interview, your mom has done, 100 diets.
Oh, she's done every diet. I mean, every year of my life, I witnessed my mom doing a diet.
That's right. And
none of them ever worked, by the way.
The statistic is every female, or the average female in America, before she turns 40, has tried almost 40 different diets. Yeah. Some have tried almost 80 different diets. And the reason is because a lot of these diets are built on unproven claims like the low-fat diet or the low-calorie. And so what a female does, and this is hard for men to understand, but what a female does, dieting to a female is like religion. Looking pretty or feeling pretty, wanting to feel pretty, the desire is like a sixth sense to a female.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that's true anymore, though. I mean,
I think it is, but what happens is diets are like bad boyfriends. You try it, you get cheated on, it doesn't work, whatever. And after you've had 10 or 15 bad boyfriends, heck, the last thing you want is a boyfriend.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay.
And it doesn't just go for women.
Female psychology today, folks, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. Yeah. So it's one of those things that we've just tried to tell people that, look, like you said, if you just eat right. And so what we've tried to teach people to do is we don't get lost in the minutia of all the extreme organic and I can't remember what they call it, the free stuff. We just say, look, if you can go from pizza, popcorn, and pie and just eating meats and vegetables in 2 or 3 weeks, you have really made a huge impact on your life that's going to have very long-lasting effects. Not only do you lose weight, but you improve a lot of internal things, your glycogen levels, your glucose levels, insulin, all that stuff.
Well,
improves.
I would actually argue that it gives you the latitude to cheat a little bit and have some of those treats too, because I certainly love chocolate, for example. And if your base food, I mean, I eat your food 3 meals a day, almost every day. If your base food is good, and I would say paleo-oriented, okay?
Right.
And listen, I tried in my 20s for 6 years. I was a vegetarian. I wasn't mega strict about it, but I was pretty much a vegetarian. A little fish once in a while, maybe. But, I've tried different things like everybody has over the years to see if you can crack the code. But the key is, if it's not easy and if it doesn't taste good, you're not going to stick with it. You might do it, be really disciplined for a week or 2 weeks or something, but it's just not going to last. With your stuff, it lasts. I enjoy eating it. The food tastes great. I season it a little bit, but it's fantastic, and it's so easy. It's so simple, and I don't do the prep that I used to with you guys in terms of putting it in the microwave. I do it in a skillet, like I mentioned to you before we started. Maybe you can talk about what it is, really. Everybody knows the problem. Look, at America's totally obese, diabetic. It's tragic. It's got to stop. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest offenders is not McDonald's. It's Starbucks. And it's amazing to me how Starbucks has just been left alone. I am shocked that people just turn their head at the Starbucks dietary health disaster those disgusting, poisonous drinks and food that they serve there, I mean, it's pathetic. Read the, quote, nutrition, unquote, information on their website. Oh my God, you have no concept how bad that food is. Or those drinks. It's like you could become diabetic, I bet, with a Frappuccino once a day. It's unbelievable how much sugar is in that stuff and how many carbohydrates. It's just mind-boggling to me. So Starbucks is a huge offender. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the things that I used to help illustrate this really well for people, and this is part of that confusion that we were talking about, companies like Starbucks, companies like Kellogg's, companies like a lot of the yogurt companies, they have become very good at marketing their products as harmless or marketing them even worse as healthy for you. And I used to do something that would really help people understand what's actually going on. And what I would do, Jason, is I would be up on stage and I would have a table and I would say, okay, how many of you in this room have this for breakfast? I'd show a bowl of Special K with milk, a glass of orange juice, a banana, and a little thing of yogurt.
Oh my God, that's like an insulin disaster right there.
And about 70% of the ladies, would hold up their hand because they've even got it on Instagram. The picture of the perfect American breakfast of a healthy woman, they raise up their hand, they're smiling, looking around, thinking they've done well. And then I sent 3 Coke cans up there. And I said, which one has more sugar? And when I do, the hands start dropping down very quickly.
Right.
Because, again, what's happened is big companies, corporations, just for the sake of money, have really put our health at risk. And now that we have smartphones and we have tablets and TVs where people are sitting around all day and eating more of this, quote, so-called healthy food, I think we're in for a rude awakening.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. I do believe in humanity, and I don't think it's the end of the world. But I do think the government will have to intervene, just like they did with big tobacco in the 70s. I think the government's going to have to intervene with the sugar industry because it's getting so out of control.
Yeah, it's just totally out of control. It's something has got to be done. Okay, so what is the solution? Let's talk about the solution. What solution does your company offer? And by the way, folks, you can get a special deal because I am an affiliate now, I'm proud to say, at jasonhartman.com/food. jasonhartman.com/food. You'll get $200 off the 28-day system, if you will, where they send you this great big box of wonderful food and easy, inexpensive food and healthy, of course. $200 off that. That's the one I order. And then you also, and I've never used these, you have subscriptions. And on those, you can get $50 off if you go to jasonhartman.com/food. So talk about the solution. What does your company provide?
You nailed it right on the head, Jason. I mean, I've always told people if it's not easy, meaning if it's not convenient, doesn't fit your busy lifestyle, it will not become a habit and it will not become a routine.
Right. Yours hits on every cylinder. It's
That's
easy,
right.
It's cheap, and it's healthy, and it's tasty.
That's right. That's right.
It's got everything, yeah.
And that's what we realized when we started testing this 10 years ago. We realized we had to have all those components. It had to be of good value. It couldn't be too expensive. It had to fit your busy lifestyle, meaning you can grab a bag and you can customize. You can eat a meat and a vegetable. You don't have to grab a TV tray and eat whatever's in that. You get to select your meat and your vegetable, heat it up in 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, and you're done. It's got to taste good because most diet food tastes really bad.
Yeah, this tastes
and
great.
Most people will eat it for a week to 10 days at the most, and then they give up. And it's got to have results. And so, I think that's what we offer in one package. And I think our reorder rate, we at one time had a 65% reorder rate, which is light years. It was the highest in the industry. There's another big company, I won't say their name, they're at 6%. We were at 65%. And today we average between 35 and 40%. So our reorder rate speaks volumes for, I think we've kind of figured out the solution. But a lot of folks think that because of the name personal trainer food, that it's just for trainers. But It's actually food that trainers recommend to their clients to eat.
Yeah, right.
And so, yeah, so it's got to be easy. It's got to taste great. It's got to be of good value, affordable, and it's got to have results. And if those four things are in line, you've got a really good meal plan. And I think that's what personal trainer food is.
Okay, so what do you get? What happens? What I do is I go to the website. It saves my menu from the last orders, so I can just reorder those really quickly. Or I can design a new one, and I get a bunch of choices of what I want to put in the box. And the box comes with dry ice. I get it in about 3 days, and I put it in my freezer, and I'm all set. I mean, it's so much less expensive and so much more convenient than going to the grocery store every couple of days, I'll tell you that.
Oh, yeah. We used to have people go, well, gosh, I'll just go to Costco and buy all this in bulk and do it myself.
Luck. Yeah.
And, and we tell them, good luck, we'll hear back from you in a couple of months, because the time that it takes to go shopping, to prepare the food, it just doesn't work.
You could, the one thing you could achieve by doing all of that, you'd spend a ton more, is you could get organic and you could get free range food, right? But that'd be more difficult to prepare, much more expensive to buy, and certainly much more inconvenient. So again, this doesn't have to be your whole diet. It doesn't have to be everything you eat. I mean, I eat out too, and I eat a few other things at home, but it's good if it's just there as a convenient base. And I tell you, everybody I've referred to you, and there have been many people, especially families, people with kids, love this. They just find it's so easy. Your kids can eat something fast and healthy and inexpensive. And it's, busy moms, my busy mom friends that I've referred to, they just love it. They call me up like 3-4 days afterwards and they say, this is so tasty. Like, I'll prepare it for them at my house when I have a friend over, and they're like, wow, this is good. What is this?
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting enough, most people, the first time they buy our food, they buy it for weight loss, but every time after that, they buy it for the convenience of it. They'll lose their 10 to 20 pounds, and their family has snuck a few of the items out. And so they're like, well, gosh, we like this food so much. Let's just buy it because it's the right way to eat. Not just because it helps you lose weight, but it's just a healthy way to eat.
Yeah. Okay. So what do you get? I described the way I order the 28-day plan, and I get 3 meals a day. I get breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And of course, it always lasts me much longer than 28 days because I don't eat it for every meal. So I'll probably typically reorder every 40, 45 days, maybe. I don't know. I'd have to look at my history. But then you have these subscriptions. Now, I've never used one of those. What's that all about?
Well, what we decided to do was, a lot of people, because as you know, our 28-day box is a monster.
It's pretty big, yeah.
It's 21 inches by 21 inches. It's about 50 pounds of product.
Clear out your freezer. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to clear out your freezer. That's right. And so we started getting enough requests for a smaller box. So we decided to do a 14-day subscription. Mm-hmm. And don't let the word subscription scare you. It's not like we're just going to auto bill you till the cows come home. You can change your delivery date up to 6 weeks out. So if you want a box every 14 days, every 10 days, every 4 weeks, but you just get a much smaller box with about half the food in it. And when people order our food, again, where we're a lot different than any other company out there, is you don't order a TV tray style meal plan. You order all your meats, and you can select 3 of this, 7 of that. You can customize. You
get a nice variety. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can also order your vegetables. And so that way, when you sit down to eat, you can pick the meat and the vegetable that you want to eat at that meal. The breakfast are an omelet, different omelets that we have with different meat products in the bags, and our breakfasts are excellent. And then we also have snacks. And so it's a lot of food. Our goal is not to starve you to death, but it's to make sure you're satiated eating good food that's very simple. But you're right. Having the good selection and the different items, it just makes it a lot easier to stick with. And we are going to be doubling our menu in about the next 45 days. So we're going to have a lot more selections on our menu.
Now, how come you can't do fish in there? Does fish just have a spoilage problem? What's the deal with fish? I mean, you have, of course, all the meats, but you don't have fish.
The USDA just approved pre-cooked frozen fish to be shipped about 13 or 14 years ago. Mm-hmm. So we started testing it, and the problem is the fish stinks so bad when you microwave it that even most men wouldn't want to eat it. And if fish does thaw out a little bit, it's a very risky protein. And so we decided we love fish, but it's just too risky and it just doesn't work well.
Okay. So you get a nice variety, and you've got all sorts of examples where people kind of customize their meals and do that kind of stuff. What I've taken to doing is eating 2 portions of vegetables and 1 portion of meat. Gosh, I tell you, if you can look at your plate and it has 2/3 green or vegetable stuff, colorful stuff, you're doing great. I mean, that's just... It's hard to beat that. And see, the thing is, even though this is not organic and it's not farm raised, you're going to be consistent with it. And that's the thing. I would venture to guess people that are really, like, I have an ex-girlfriend who's super picky about food. In fact, I was teasing her because there's a name for this. It's called orthorexia. Okay. like anorexia, but it's someone who's got to eat everything organic and it's just got to be perfect all the time, right? They've actually named this a bit of a disorder.
Yeah.
And, but it's just too hard for her to do that consistently. And she may win one meal at a time, but I'll win with your stuff on the consistency program, So that's something to think about. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And you're right. It's about consistency, doing it day in, day out. And we tell everyone it's 1 meal at a time. And once you've done it for about 2 to 3 weeks, then the light bulb goes off and you go, okay, I get it. It's about avoiding sugars and gluten and the low-fat pastas and the things I thought were healthy, and just keeping it simple by eating meats and vegetables. And if that's one thing I could tell your listeners, is that if you just keep it simple so that you become consistent at it, you will have a lot of success.
Absolutely, absolutely. Very good point. And the thing you didn't mention, too, is that by eating right, interestingly, kills a lot of those sweet cravings. It's just weird how the body works. When you start getting this stuff in balance, you just don't really crave the bad stuff, When you do, just, if you're still hungry, just go have another meal. It takes you about 3 minutes to prepare. So it's so easy, just have seconds,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Super easy. Good
exactly.
stuff. Well, hey, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been really interesting. I'm glad to be an affiliate. I really just love your product. After this, I'm going to go make lunch, and it's going to be your food, which everybody can get a nice discount on at jasonhartman.com/food. jasonhartman.com/food. Anything else you want to tell our listeners in closing?
I will say this, Jason. We're very selective on affiliates, and we have less than 4 or 5 in the United States.
Wow.
And so we're grateful for the work that you do and for you being a customer, and just for your story and your testimonial and the fact that you're trying to help people. That is huge in our playbook. So we appreciate you.
Yeah, well, hey, thank you. It's absolutely my pleasure. If you can help this country overcome the obesity and diabetes epidemic, and of course that also translates into heart disease and cancer, of course, that would be a huge, huge thing. So I just hope it spreads like wildfire. I know. How many customers do you have, by the way? You're big. I mean, you're a big company. Right?
We have just under 200,000.
200,000. So all you got to do is get another 319,800,000, and we'll have the whole country eating your stuff.
There you go. Yeah. I think big, be big. I love it. That's right.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, Mike Starks, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day, Jason.
Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. Be sure to check out the show's specific website and our general website, hartmanmedia.com, for appropriate disclaimers and terms of service. Remember that guest opinions are their own, and if you require specific legal or tax advice or advice in any other specialized area, please consult an appropriate professional. And we also very much appreciate you reviewing the show. Please go to iTunes or Stitcher Radio or whatever platform you're using and write a review for the show. We would very much appreciate that. And be sure to make it official and subscribe so you do not miss any episodes. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.